Do-do-do. Okay, I think we're good. Hey everyone, welcome back for another session of reading from yours truly, Vexing Cat. Today, hey Sino, hey Diaz. Let's see, we got Deus, we got Sino, we got Hawk, Wandy, Valis, hello. Got a few folks in here. Defiant Luck. And Chile Lasath, I believe I met you on Lucas stream. We played Repo that one time. And Kindred, always lovely to see you. And Neft the Lore Keeper. Nefterath the Lore Keeper. You changed your name, it occurs to me. You are now Neft the Lore Keeper. That makes it a lot easier. I wonder what precipitated that change. I'll have to pick your brain one day. Let's see. We've got captions turned on. I've got OBS captions if you prefer those. I also have the integrated captions through Twitch if you prefer those. We are going to read about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly 5 stories today. Sounds good. Thank you for the lyric. So, as before, we're reading fairy tales every child should know, and this is a collection of tales that were curated by Hamilton Wright Mabie and Mary Hamilton Fry. So let's see here. So we're pretty far into the book at this point. After today's session, we'll only have 2 stories, possibly 3 stories, depending on how fast this goes, to have to read. Let's see. Did I somehow get like 3 ads in today? Whatever. I don't know how that happened. Moving on. We should be able to go ad-free, potentially. I know I got at least 2 in. But, yeah, we'll do a bit of reading today, and then I'll be able to do one more reading of this book. I'm going to shoot for next week on either Monday or Tuesday. So for you avid listeners that enjoy the stories. I'm going to be transitioning over to like a Monday, Wednesday schedule for reading, and then keeping Friday open for collabs. And then I have a bi-weekly D&D stream, which if you're not already following Valis_VT, he is the DM for that campaign. And he does a bit of streaming himself. So you should check out his content. Valis, go ahead and get yourself a shout if you can. And if not, I will wait 2 minutes and do it myself. I think I've gotten a pretty amazing group of folks that help moderate for me. I've got oh goodness, I got Tiger Faye. They're another tiger. Manama. I got Valis VT, Valen. I've got Void Baron Jules. Unfortunately, depending on the time zone, some of them cannot be here, and a lot of them are also streamers themselves, so it's just kind of help out where they can when they can. And since I didn't get a response from Valis, I'll go ahead and just do that right now. At Valis, there we go. Boop, boop, boo. It'll be really funny if it just shows the clip of us again. So,
you need the grave of Adrian von Scratchington the 17th. So this old woman named 17 different cats Adrian von Scratchington.
Well, there you go. Adrian von Scratchington the 18th, I'm sure, is doing well. I'm not entirely sure which game that was. I do remember him playing it though. Currently, it looks like he's playing Ale Abbey, which is a really amazing single player game where you run a huge monastery with a bunch of drunken monks that brew various types of beer. So you make like blonde ale or farmhouse style ale, and you have various cities that you can build up rapport with, and you sell your ale to them, and they'll send you requests for like, hey, so and so is getting married, or so and so is having a funeral, or so and so is having this special event, or it's our inaugural city founders day, and they'll put in a request for specific ales that you'll have to fulfill the orders. I digress. We are cruising. Let's go ahead and get started on the actual reason we are all here today, and that is storytelling. Am I forgetting anything? No, I think that's about it. We're getting close to our...
before you dihydrate.
Fair enough, Kitty. You got it. I'm gonna go ahead and drink some water real quick. Oh, you follow Scissor Runner. Also, if you're not already following Scissor Runner, Sabrina's an amazing artist. Just absolutely phenomenal. They've done a couple of Furby VTuber models for Lasada and Bug Skipper and a few other folks that are just, they're beautiful and also horrifying in like the best way. Let me get a shout out for her as well. Scissors Runner. Is it with an... I think it's... Is it Scissors? Yes, Scissors Runner. Perfect. So we'll check her out real quick. But yeah, Scissor Runner is an absolutely phenomenal artist. I've actually done a collab with her last year with Sino the Crocodile. We did Monster Prom 2, the camp one.
Sabrina, in today's ugly 21 months for us. Oh. And I will always love the... Shut! Stop! Oh my god!
Oh, that's adorable. And apparently she can sing too. I had no idea. You've done art with her. Oh, that's awesome, Kitty. Okay. All right. So into the meat and potatoes. We shall read. So this is from Tales every let me think, drawing a blank because it's been a long day. Fairy tales that every child should know. A collection of stories by collected by Hamilton. My brain is absolutely smushed today. Hamilton Wright, maybe. There we go. And this was produced in 1905. I remember that much. There we go. Could have just gone to the cover. It's going to be one of those days. At least the week's almost over, yeah? Okay. Fairy tales that every child should know. Chapter 18. Jack the Giant Killer. In the reign of the famous King Arthur, there lived near the Land's End of England, in the county of Cornwall, a worthy farmer who had an only son named Jack. Jack was a boy of a bold temper. He took pleasure in hearing or reading stories of wizards, conjurers, giants, and fairies, and used to listen eagerly while his father talked of the great deeds of the brave knights of King Arthur's Round Table. When Jack was sent to take care of the sheep and oxen in the fields, he used to amuse himself with planning battles, sieges, and the means to conquer or surprise a foe. He was above the common sports of children, but hardly any one could equal him at wrestling, or if he met with a match for himself in strength, his skill and address always made him the victor. In those days there lived on St. Michael's Mound of Cornwall, which rises out of the sea at some distance from the mainland, a huge giant. He was 18 feet high and 3 yards round, and his fierce and savage looks were the terror of all his neighbors. He dwelt in a gloomy cavern on the very top of the mountain, and used to wade over to the mainland in search of his prey. When he came near, the people left their houses, and after he had glutted his appetite upon their cattle, he would throw 6 oxen upon his back, and tie 3 times as many sheep and hogs round his waist, and so march back to his own abode. The giant had done this for many years, and the coast of Cornwall was greatly hurt by his thefts, when Jack boldly resolved to destroy him. He therefore took a horn, a shovel, pickaxe, and a dark lantern, and early in a long winter's evening he swam to the mount. There he fell to work at once, and before morning he had dug a pit 22 feet deep, and almost as many broad. He covered it over with sticks and straw, and strewed some of the earth over them, to make it look just like solid ground. He then put his horn to his mouth, and blew such a loud and long tantivy that the giant awoke and came towards Jack, roaring like thunder. "You saucy villain, you shall pay dearly for breaking my rest. I will broil you for my breakfast." He had scarcely spoken these words when he came advancing 1 step farther. But then he tumbled headlong into the pit, and his fall shook the very mountain. "Oh-ho, Mr. Giant," said Jack, looking into the pit. "Have you found your way so soon to the bottom? How is your appetite now? Will nothing serve you for breakfast this cold morning but broiling poor Jack?" The giant now tried to rise, but Jack struck him a blow on the crown of the head with his pickaxe, which killed him at once. Jack then made haste back to rejoice his friends with the news of the giant's death. When the justices of Cornwall heard of this valiant action, they sent for Jack and declared that he should always be called Jack the Giant Killer. And they also gave him a sword and belt upon which was written the letters of gold. This is the valiant Cornishman who slew the giant Cormoran. Not so bad. Welcome in, Gwaine, and hello, Curious. I hope you're doing well. Is my captions working? It is. Okay. I just looked over and it didn't look like it was. There we go. The news of Jack's exploits soon spread over the western parts of England, and another giant, called Old Blunderbore, vowed to have revenge on Jack. If it should ever be his fortune to get him into his power. This giant kept an enchanted castle in the midst of a lonely wood. About 4 months after the death of Cormoran, as Jack was taking a journey into Wales, he passed through this wood, and as he was very weary, he sat down to rest by the side of a pleasant fountain, and there he fell into a deep sleep. The giant came to the fountain for water just at this time and found Jack there. And as the lines on Jack's belt showed who he was, the giant lifted him up and laid him gently upon his shoulder to carry him to his castle. But as he passed through the thicket, the rustling of the leaves waked Jack, and he was sadly afraid when he found himself in the clutches of Blunderbore. Yet this was nothing to his fright soon after, for when they reached the castle he beheld the floor covered all over with the skulls and bones of men and women. The giant took him into a large room where lay the hearts and limbs of persons who had been lately killed, and he told Jack with a horrid grin that men's hearts eaten with pepper and vinegar were his nicest food, and also that he thought he should make a dainty meal on his heart. When he had said this, he locked Jack up in that room while he went to fetch another giant who lived in the same wood, to enjoy a dinner off Jack's flesh with him. While he was away, Jack heard dreadful shrieks, groans, and cries from many parts of the castle, and soon after he heard a mournful voice repeat these lines: "Haste, valiant stranger, haste away, lest you become the giant's prey. Lest you become the giant's prey. On his return he'll bring another, still more savage than his brother, a horrid, cruel monster who, before he kills you, will torture you. O valiant stranger, haste away, or you'll become these giants' prey." This warning was so shocking to poor Jack that he was ready to go mad. He ran to the window and saw the two giants coming along arm in arm. This window was right over the castle, the gates of the castle. Now, thought Jack, either my death or my freedom is at hand. There were 2 strong cords in the room. Jack made a large noose with a slip knot at the end of both of these, and as the giants were coming through the gates, he threw the ropes over their heads. He then made the other ends fast to a beam in the ceiling and pulled with all his might till he had almost strangled them. When he saw that they were both quite black in the face and had not the least strength left, he drew his sword and slid down the ropes. He then killed the giants and thus saved himself from the cruel death they meant to put him to. Jack next took a great bunch of keys from the pocket of Blunderbore and went into the castle again. He made a strict search through all the rooms, and in them found 3 ladies tied up by the hair of their heads and almost starved to death. They told him that their husbands had been killed by the giants, who had then condemned them to be starved to death, because they would not eat the flesh of their own dead husbands. "Ladies," said Jack, "I have put an end to the monster and his wicked brother, and I give you this castle and all the riches it contains, to make you some amends for the dreadful pains you have felt." He then very politely gave them the keys of the castle, and went further on his journey to Wales. As Jack had not taken any of the giant's riches for himself, and so had very little money on his own, he thought it best to travel as fast as he could. At length he lost his way, and when night came on, he was in a lonely valley between 2 lofty mountains, where he walked about for some hours, without seeing any dwelling place. So he thought himself very lucky at last in finding a large and handsome house. He went up to it boldly and knocked loudly at the gate, when, to his great terror and surprise, there came forth a monstrous giant with 2 heads. He spoke to Jack very civilly, for he was a Welsh giant, and all the mischief he did was by private and secret malice. Under the show of friendship and kindness, Jack told him that he was a traveler who had lost his way, on which the huge monster made him welcome, and led him into a room where there was a good bed to pass the night in. Jack took off his clothes quickly, but though he was so weary he could not go to sleep. Soon after this he heard the giant walking backward and forward in the next room, saying to himself, "Though here you lodge with me this night, you shall not see the morning light. My club shall dash your brains out quite." "Say you so?" thought Jack. "Are these your tricks upon travelers? But I hope to prove as cunning as you." Then, getting out of bed, he groped about the room, and at last found a large, thick billet of wood. He laid it in his own place in the bed, and then hid himself in a dark corner of the room. In the middle of the night, the giant came with his great club and struck many heavy blows on the bed, in the very place where Jack had laid the billet, and then he went back to his own room, thinking he had broken all his bones. Early in the morning, Jack put a bold face upon the matter, and walked into the giant's room to thank him for his lodgings. The giant started when he saw him, and he began to stammer out, "Oh, dear me! Is that you? Pray, how did you sleep last night? Did you hear or see anything in the dead of the night?" "Nothing worth speaking of," said Jack carelessly. "A rat, I believe, gave me 3 or 4 slaps with his tail and disturbed me a little, but I soon went to sleep again." The giant wondered more and more at this, yet he did not answer a word, but went to bring 2 great bowls of hasty pudding for their breakfast. Jack wished to make the giant believe that he could eat as much as himself. So he contrived to button a leathern bag inside his coat, and slipped the hasty pudding into this bag, when he seemed to put it into his mouth. When breakfast was over, he said to the giant, "Now I will show you a fine trick. I can cure all wounds with a touch. I could cut off my head 1 minute, and the next put it sound again on my shoulders. You shall see an example." He then took hold of the knife, ripped up the leathern bag, and all the hasty pudding tumbled out upon the floor. "Odd splutter her nails!" cried the Welsh giant, who was ashamed to be outdone by such a little fellow as Jack. Her can do, or her can do." Suddenly it's a like weird Swedish shuff. Her can do that herself. So he snatched up the knife, plunged it into his stomach, and in a moment dropped down dead. As soon as Jack had thus tricked the Welsh monster, he went farther on his journey, and a few days after he met with King Arthur's only son, who had got his father's leave to travel into Wales to deliver a beautiful lady from the power of a wicked magician, who held her in his enchantments. There we go. Who held her in his enchantments. When Jack found that the young prince had no servants with him, he begged leave to attend him, and the prince at once agreed to this, and gave Jack many thanks for his kindness. The prince was a handsome, polite, and brave knight, and so good-natured that he gave money to everybody he met. At length he gave his last penny to an old woman, and then turned to Jack and said, "How shall we be able to get food for ourselves the rest of our journey?" "Leave that to me, sir," said Jack. "I will provide for my prince." Night now came on, and the prince began to grow uneasy at thinking where they should lodge. "Sir," said Jack, "be of good heart. 2 miles farther there lives a large giant, whom I know well. He has 3 heads, and will fight 500 men, and make them fly before him." "Alas," replied the king's son, "we had better never have been born than meet with such a monster. My lord, leave me to manage him, and wait here in quiet till I return." The prince now stayed behind, while Jack rode on full speed. And when he came to the gates of the castle, he gave a loud knock. The giant, with a voice like thunder, roared out, "Who is there?" And Jack made answer and said, "No one but your poor cousin Jack." "Well," said the giant, "what news, cousin Jack?" "Dear uncle," said Jack, "I have some heavy news." "Pooh!" said the giant. "What heavy news can come to me? I am a giant with 3 heads, and can fight 500 men and make them fly before me." "Alas," said Jack, "here is the king's son coming with 2,000 men to kill you, and to destroy the castle and all that you have." "Oh, cousin Jack," said the giant, "this is heavy news indeed, but I have a large cellar underground where I will hide myself, and you shall lock and bar me in, and keep the keys till the king's son is gone." Now, when Jack had made the giant fast in the vault, he went back and fetched the prince to the castle. They both made themselves merry with the wine and other dainties that were in the house. So that night they rested very pleasantly, while the poor giant lay trembling and shaking with fear in the cellar underground. Early in the morning, Jack gave the king's son gold and silver out of the giant's treasure, and set him 3 miles forward on his journey. He then went to his uncle out of the hole, and he then went to let his uncle out of the hole, who asked Jack what he should give him as a reward for saving his castle. "Why, good uncle," said Jack, "I desire nothing but the old coat and cap, with the old rusty sword and slippers, which are hanging at your bed's head." Then said the giant, "You shall have them, and pray keep them for my sake, for they are things of great use. The coat will keep you invisible, the cap will give you knowledge, the sword cut through anything, and the shoes are of vast swiftness. These may be useful to you in all times of danger, so take them with all my heart." Jack gave many thanks to the giant, and then set off to the prince. When he had come up with the king's son, they soon arrived at the dwelling of the beautiful lady, who was under the power of a wicked magician. She received the prince very politely, and made a noble feast for him. And when it was ended, she rose, and wiping her mouth with a fine handkerchief, said, "My lord, you must submit to the custom of my palace. Tomorrow morning I command you to tell me on whom I bestow this handkerchief, or lose your head." She then went out of the room. The young prince went to bed very mournful, but Jack put on his cap of knowledge, which told him that the lady was forced, by the power of enchantment, to meet the wicked magician every night in the middle of the forest. Jack now put on his coat of darkness and his shoes of swiftness, and was there before her. When the lady came, she gave the handkerchief to the magician. Jack, with his sword of sharpness, at one blow cut off his head. The enchantment was then ended in a moment, and the lady was restored to her former virtue and goodness. Bit more water there. Also, hello. So, Kurtbert, hi, hello, hi. I am doing quite well. Thank you for asking. And Fallen, thank you for the lurk. I think there's a few more of you out there lurking right now. Looks like Zwind is out there, Nemiak, Miv, Dobie. I know you're lurking. Let's see. She was married to the prince on the next day, and soon after went back with her royal husband and a great company to the court of King Arthur. Thank you for the head pats. Where they were received with loud and joyful welcomes, and the valiant hero Jack, for the many great exploits he had done for the good of his country, was made one of the knights of the Round Table. As Jack had been so lucky in all his adventures, he resolved not to be idle for the future, but still to do what service he could for the honor of the king and the nation. He therefore humbly begged his majesty to furnish him with a horse and money, that he might travel in search of new and strange exploits. "For," said he to the king, "there are many giants yet living in the remote parts of Wales, to the great terror and distress of your majesty's subjects. Therefore, if it please you, sire, to favor me in my design, I will soon rid your kingdom of these giants and monsters in human shape." Now, when the king heard this offer and began to think of the cruel deeds of these bloodthirsty giants and savage monsters, he gave Jack everything proper for such a journey. After this, Jack took leave of the king, the prince, and all the knights, and set off, taking with him his cap of knowledge, his sword of sharpness, his shoes of swiftness, and his invisible coat, the better to perform the great exploits that might fall in his way. He went along over high hills and lofty mountains, and on the third day he came to a large, wide forest, through which his road led. He had hardly entered the forest when, on a sudden, he heard very dreadful shrieks and cries. He forced his way through the trees and saw a monstrous giant dragging along by the hair of their heads a handsome knight and his beautiful lady. Their tears and cries melted the heart of honest Jack to pity and compassion. He alighted from his horse, and tying him to an oak tree, he put on his invisible coat, under which he carried his sword of sharpness. Actually, Zwind, this is Jack the Giant Killer is its own story, unrelated to the beanstalk. However, there are some roots in this myth of, remember, it was Jack that took a sponge and filled it with water. And it's like, I can get water from a stone. That is the same Jack. I killed one with, I killed one with two with one stone, in regards to, happening to get two birds with one stone. And then I killed 12 in one blow, and it was 12 flies, and just not specific. So there were seeds of that story from this story. But this is actually a original British tale. I think this was translated into French from Charles Perrault. Yeah. The story from Antwerp in Belgium. Good. That's a good story too. I love good folk tales. Let's see. When he came up to the giant, he made several strokes at him, but could not reach his body on account of the enormous height of the terrible creature. But he wounded his thighs in several places, and at length, putting both hands to his sword, aiming with all his might, he cut off both the giant's legs just below the garter, and the trunk of his body tumbling to the ground made not only the trees shake, but the earth itself tremble with the force of his fall. Then Jack, setting his foot upon his neck, exclaimed, "Thou barbarous and savage wretch, behold, I come to execute upon thee the just reward for all thy crimes," and instantly plunged his sword into the giant's body. The huge monster gave a hideous groan and yielded up his life into the hands of the victorious Jack the Giant Killer. Whilst the noble knight and the virtuous lady were both joyful spectators of his sudden death and their deliverance, the courteous knight and his fair lady not only returned Jack hearty thanks for their deliverance, but also invited him to their house to refresh himself after his dreadful encounter, as likewise to receive a reward for his good services. "No," said Jack, "I cannot be at ease till I find out the den that was the monster's habitation." The knight, on hearing this, grew very sorrowful, and replied, "Noble stranger, it is too much to run a second hazard. This monster lived in a den under yonder mountain, with a brother of his more fierce and cruel than himself. Therefore, if you should go thither and perish in the attempt, it would be a heart-breaking thing to me and my lady. So let me persuade you to go with us, and desist from any farther pursuit." "Nay," answered Jack, "if there be another, even if there were 20, I would shed the last drop of blood in my body before one of them should escape my fury. When I have finished this task, I will come and pay my respects to you." So, when they had told him where to find them again, he got on his horse and went after the dead giant's brother. Jack had not rode a mile and a half before he came in sight of the mouth of the cavern, and nigh the entrance of it. He saw the other giant sitting on a huge block of fine timber, with a knotted iron club lying by his side, waiting for his brother. His eyes looked like flames of fire. Are there other flames that I'm not aware of? Flames of fire just seems oddly redundant to me. Whatever. His face was grim and ugly, and his cheeks seemed like two flitches of bacon. The bristles of his beard seemed to be thick rods of iron wire, and his long locks of hair hung down upon his broad shoulders like curling snakes. Jack got down from his horse and turned him into a thicket. Then he put on his coat of darkness and drew a little nearer to behold this figure, and said softly, "O monster, are you there? It will not be long before I shall take you fast by the beard." The giant all this while could not see him by reason of his invisible coat, so Jack came quite close to him and struck a blow at his head with his sword of sharpness. But he missed his aim and only cut off his nose, which made him roar like loud claps of thunder. And though he rolled his glaring eyes round on every side, he could not see who had given him the blow. Yet he took up his iron club and began to lay about him like one that was mad with pain and fury. "Nay," said Jack, "if this be the case, I will kill you at once." So saying, he slipped nimbly behind him, and jumping upon the block of timber, as the giant rose from it, he stabbed him in the back. And when after a few howls he dropped down dead, Jack cut off his head and sent it with the head of his brother, whom he had killed before in the forest, to King Arthur, by a wagon which he hired for that purpose, with an account of all his exploits. When Jack had thus killed these two monsters, he went into their cave in search of their treasure. He passed through many turnings and windings, which led him to a room paved with free stone. At the end of it was a boiling cauldron, and on the right hand stood a large table where the giants used to dine. He then came to a window that was secured with iron bars, through which he saw a number of wretched captives, who cried out when they saw Jack, "Alas, alas, young man, you are come to be one among us in this horrid den." "I hope," said Jack, "you will not stay here long, but pray tell me what is the meaning of your being here at all." "Alas," said one poor old man, "I will tell you, sir. We are persons that have been taken by the giants who hold this cave, and are kept till they choose to have a feast. Then one of us is to be killed and cooked to please their taste. It is not long since they took 3 for the same purpose." "Well," said Jack, "I have given them such a dinner that it will be long enough before they have any more." The captives were amazed at his words. "You may believe me," said Jack, "for I have killed them both with the edge of the sword, and have sent their large heads to the court of King Arthur as marks of my great success." To show them that what he said was true, he unlocked the gate and set them all free. Then he led them to the great room, placed them round the table, and set before them 2 quarters of beef, with bread and wine, upon which they feasted to their fill. When supper was over, they searched the giant's coffers, and Jack shared the store in them among the captives, who thanked him for their escape. The next morning they set off to their homes, and Jack to the knight's house, whom he had left with his lady not long before. It was just at the time of sunrise that Jack mounted his horse to proceed his journey. This should be titled "How to Traumatize Your Children for Life." You know, fair. And I agree, Guts. Not to be confused with flames of water.
Hydrate before you dihydrate.
Yes, Carrick, you got it. Also, hello and welcome in. Drink some water. Well, that's the trick, right, Zwind? So these were very much stories that you told to your children to instill the fear of them behaving, lest something terrible happened to them. So I think for this particular instance, giants just existing in the world is enough for some children to be like, yeah, I'm not gonna go tromping off into the woods by myself, or I'm not gonna wander away from my village unescorted, I am doing well. I hope you're doing well too, Carrick. Let's see. He arrived at the knight's house, where he was received with the greatest joy by the thankful knight and his lady, who, in honor of Jack's exploits, gave a grand feast. Welcome in, Sloth. Let's see. Start that paragraph again. He arrived at the knight's house, where he was received with the greatest joy by the thankful knight and his lady, who, in honor of Jack's exploits, gave a grand feast, to which all the nobles and gentry were invited. When the company were assembled, the knight declared to them the great actions of Jack. No worries, Sloth. On which was engraved the picture of the giant dragging the knight and the lady by the hair, with the motto round it, "Behold, in dire distress we under a giant's fierce command, but gained our lives and liberty from valiant Jack's victorious hand." Among the guests then presented were 5 aged gentlemen, who were fathers to some of those captives who had been freed by Jack from the dungeon of the giants. As soon as they heard that he was the person who had done such wonders, they pressed round him with tears of joy to return him thanks for the happiness he had caused to them. After this the bowl went round, and every one drank to the health and long life of the gallant hero. Mirth increased, and the hall was filled with peals of laughter and joyful cries. But, on a sudden, a herald, pale and breathless with haste and terror, rushed into the midst of the company and told them that Thundel, a savage giant with 2 heads, had heard of the death of his 2 kinsmen, and was come to take his revenge on Jack, and that he was now within a mile of the house. The people, flying before him like chaff before the wind, at this news, the very boldest of the guests trembled. But Jack drew his sword and said, "Let him come. I have a rod for him also. Pray, ladies and gentlemen, do me the favor to walk into the garden, and you shall soon behold the giant's defeat and death." To this they all agreed and heartily wished him success in his dangerous attempt. The knight's house stood in the middle of a moat, 30 feet deep and 20 wide, over which lay a drawbridge. Jack set men to work to cut the bridge on both sides, almost to the middle, and then dressed himself in his coat of darkness, and went against the giant with his sword of sharpness. As he came close to him, though the giant could not see him for his invisible coat, yet he found some danger was near, which made him cry out, "Fa, fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Let him be alive or let him be dead, I'll grind his bones to make me bread." "Say you so, my friend?" said Jack. "You are a monstrous miller indeed." "That art thou," cried the giant, "the villain that killed my kinsman?" Oh my.
Ken Arash just rated with 25 viewers.
Storm warning. It's an Arashi approaching. Oh no,
Hi.
not the wild Arashi. Welcome in, everyone. Hello, Raiders. You did. You brought them for some aftercare. Yes, everyone,
Hi.
make sure to hydrate and caffeinate and grab whatever you need to relax and wind down.
What happens if I make noodle body?
Oh, no. bonk.
Oh no!
The great bonk.
Oh, no!
This is incredible, Ken. Oh. That is fantastic. Let's do So Shuttered Chaos is making the rounds and is a newer member of the community of Underrealm. Let's see here, Shuttered Chaos. If you're not already following Shuttered, they are absolutely lovely. Look at their little model.
No,
Aren't they adorable?
I yawned and it sounded like a moan is what I meant to say.
Hell yeah. No, hella appreciate you, Shuttered. You've been wonderful since you joined the community. You show up in everybody's streams, you're super chill in voice channels.
Excuse me?
We ask and we respond.
Mommy?
Aw.
Sorry.
Mommy? Sorry. Mommy?
Sorry. Mommy?
That's
Sorry.
me.
Mommy?
Yes. Well, all of you wonderful raiders, welcome in. You're here for your aftercare. If you're not already familiar with my content, my name is Vexing Cat. There you go, Shuttered. Fantastic. And if you've got your 7 streams and you've got your 50 followers, bada bing, bada boom. Make affiliate. That's fantastic. Good work. But it's a good one. Yes. So welcome in. Hello, my name is Vexing Cat. You can call me Vex or Vexing Cat or Miss Vex if you're being particularly naughty. I am a Tiger Librarian VTuber. I do mostly reading streams. For a minute there, it seemed like I was doing gaming streams too often, and I'm kind of dialing that back to go back to my roots. I really want to stick with more reading content and then save the weekends like Friday, Saturday, Sunday for gaming specifically. That way I can play with others, because playing solo games is good, and especially if it's like the reading cat. Maybe reading tiger. That's fantastic. Miss Vex. Yes, indeed. But yes, I am part of this amazing VTuber group, which Kanarashi is a part of. And we are part of Underrealm. We're both part of Gen 2, which we joined in, I think, November of 2024. We'll be doing our next application period next year. Doing applications right up against Christmas time. It was just a little bit rough. It was a little bit rough, but there is a lot of really amazing people in this channel right now, and I am slightly overwhelmed. Speaking of overwhelmed, I have the incredibly wonderful, beautiful knowledge, news, whatever you want to call it, of saying I finally got my final file, my CMO3 file, my mock MOC3 file from my rigger, and it's done. I did. So it's done. I'm gonna need to do a lot to kind of get it ready to do a debut, but we're there. It's paid for, it's received. We're done. Oh, wow, thank you, Andy. Thank you for the gift.
1 subscriptions to the community.
So, now I need other things. Like I've got the reveal, I've got words are hard. I've got the reveal post stuff already. I still need to figure out, I got music done. I'd like to get some custom overlays. I've got emotes coming. I'd love to do more custom alerts, like something more than just my emotes for snack time and drink time and what have you, but I'm okay with leaving them as is. I think getting a custom overlay, which I have this like foresty one, and I like that I have the 4 seasons, but I think something a little more librarian coded would be nice. They are, and I've got 10 more coming. When I do my debut, I'll have 10 more emotes for everyone to enjoy. I'll be swapping out some of the old ones and putting in the new ones. And enjoy your lurk. Shuttered Chaos. I lurk whilst I check my stats. Okay. Congratulations on making 50 followers, Shuttered. I love that our community helps build up others like this. It's really cool. So if you're not already in Underrealm, you should definitely check it out. That's Underrealm. So if you're not already part of Underrealm, be sure to check out our Discord server. We're on Twitter, we're on Blue Sky. Be sure to give us a follow there. We've got a couple of cool events coming up. Like this weekend, Ken is going to be doing a live stream of Eurovision 2025 with his incredibly his incredibly lovely fiance, Tybo. Yes. Tybo Rebe. Tybo Rebe is, nurse. Spicy salamander nurse. Yes. She is insanely hot. So if you're not following Tybo, you should. She is absolutely lovely, and I love her content. She's so sweet. Yep, Orange Girly Gang. There's only 2 of us, Tybo. We gotta stick together. We're surrounded by all the cute purple girlies. I love them. I love every single one, but it's like, I'm all alone. There's no one here beside me. But I got you, Tybo. I got another orange girly. Now we just need to find another green friendo for Ken to bring them on the team. There are a couple of really cute green froggos. Maybe round those out next year. Yes, Yuki is classified as a purple girly. So Erosita, Luca, Eloria VT, and Yuki Sukamori are all purple girlies. Super cute. Tiny is a redhead. A spectacular, gorgeous goddess of a vampiress. Yeah, Eloria. Elo. Oh, Erosita. Elo is peak purple girly. True. Yes. No. We got all the purple girlies. We just don't have mini not purple girlies. Actually, I think Red Lethal Panda is also purple girly. Very purple coated. Their robe is purple. Also. Star, yes. That is in the future. All stinky. The best kind of stinky. I have good friends stinky. I digress. We are here to read books, so I'm gonna go back to that. Preference for red girly? I have preference for good people. Shut it, Cooks! My goodness. Yes, book. In fact, just as a I can't show you a preview, but for the future, one of those 10 emotes that I requested is based off of Neff the Lore Keeper. He has this person holding a sign that says shut up and read. I got my own custom version of that. Because it is something that I think I need a reminder for, because otherwise I'll just ADHD off in the woods. Where are we going? I don't know. Okay. All right, here we go. Back to the story of Jack the Giant Killer. Jingle, jingle. I'm going to reread that. Fa, fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Let him be alive or let him be dead. I'll grind his bones to make my bread. Make me bread. Say you so, my friend, said Jack. You are a monstrous miller indeed. Art thou, cried the giant, the villain that killed my kinsman? Then I will tear thee with my teeth, and grind thy bones to powder. You must catch me first, said Jack, and throwing off his coat of darkness and putting on his shoes of swiftness, he began to run, the giant following him like a walking castle, making the earth shake at every step. Jack led him round and round the walls of the house, that the company might see the monster, and to finish the work Jack ran over the drawbridge, the giant going after him with his club. But when the giant came to the middle, where the bridge had been cut on both sides, the great weight of his body made it break, and he tumbled into the water and rolled about like a large whale. Jack now stood by the side of the moat and laughed and jeered at him, saying, I think you told me you would grind my bones to powder. When will you begin? The giant foamed at both his horrid mouths with fury and plunged from side to side of the moat. But he could not get out to have revenge on his little foe. At last Jack ordered a cart rope to be brought to him. He then drew it over his 2 heads, and by the help of a team of horses dragged him to the edge of the moat, where he cut off the monster's heads, and before he either eat or drank, he sent them both to the court of King Arthur. He then went back to the table with the company, and the rest of the day was spent in mirth and good cheer. After staying with the knight for some time, Jack grew weary of such an idle life, and set out again in search of new adventures. He went over the hills and dales without meeting any, till he came to the foot of a very high mountain. Here he knocked at the door of a small and lonely house, and an old man with a head as white as snow let him in. Good father, said Jack, can you lodge a traveller who has lost his way? Yes, said the hermit, I can, if you will accept such fare as my poor house affords. Jack entered, and the old man set before him some bread and fruit for his supper. When Jack had eaten as much as he chose, the hermit said, My son, I know you are the famous conqueror of giants. Now, on the top of this mountain is an enchanted castle, kept by a giant named Galligantus, who, by the help of a vile magician, gets many knights into his castle, where he changes them into the shape of beasts. Good night, Zwind. Get some rest. Also, hello, Islu. I hope you're doing well. Above all, I lament the hard fate of a duke's daughter, whom they seized as she was walking in her father's garden, and brought hither through the air in a chariot drawn by 2 fiery dragons, and turned her into the shape of a deer. Many knights have tried to destroy the enchantment and deliver her, yet none have been able to do it, by reason of 2 fiery griffins who guard the gate of the castle, and destroy all who come nigh. But as you, my son, have an invisible coat, you may pass by them without being seen, and on the gates of the castle you will find engraved by what means the enchantment may be broken. I've lost count of how many giants he's killed, but at this point I think only one has survived. Thank you for the bets. That's very kind. Jack promised that in the morning, at the risk of his life, he would break the enchantment. And, after a sound sleep, he arose early, put on his invisible coat. Hydrate before you dihydrate. Okay, okay. Sip, sip. There we go. Put on his invisible coat and got ready for the attempt. When he had climbed to the top of the mountain, he saw the 2 fiery griffins. But he passed between them without the least fear of danger, for they could not see him because of his invisible coat. On the castle gate he found a golden trumpet, under which were written these lines: "Whoever can this trumpet blow shall cause the giant's overthrow." Yes, you better hydrate before you dihydrate. Well, a little bit. So I have 2 modes shuttered. I have up, so I'm looking what I think of as like talking to you, the listener, and then I think of looking down, so I'm reading the book. And I have something similar for the live 2D model as well. I guess it would be a toggle. It's through VideoTube, so it's not quite the same. It's like I have them keyed into hotkeys. It will be neat. It will be really neat. Whoever can this trumpet blow shall cause the giant's overthrow. As soon as Jack had read this, he seized the trumpet and blew a shrill blast, which made the gates fly open, and the very castle itself tremble. The giant and the conjurer now knew that their wicked course was at an end, and they stood biting their thumbs and shaking with fear. Jack, with his sword of sharpness, soon killed the giant. The magician was then carried away by a whirlwind, and every knight and beautiful lady who had been changed into birds and beasts returned to their proper shapes. The castle vanished away like smoke, and the head of the giant Galligantus was sent to King Arthur. The knights and ladies rested that night at the old man's hermitage, and next day they set out for the court. Jack then went up to the king and gave his majesty an account of all his fierce battles. Jack's fame had spread through the whole country, and at the king's desire the duke gave him his daughter in marriage, to the joy of all the kingdom. After this, the king gave him a large estate, on which he and his lady lived the rest of their days in joy and content. There is a lot of King Arthur, especially in British storytelling. Like he's very, very famous. Until they were murdered by old age. Probably not murder, Nutty, but maybe. It's entirely possible. I feel like Jack the Giant Killer was kind of a baddie even into death. Yeah. That was a pretty good chapter. All right, we are, how far are we? We're about an hour and a half in. Give or take. We're between chapters. Now is a good time to take a break. The next couple chapters are pretty short though, so I don't think I need to. Question mark, said Vexing Cat inquisitively. Let's see. Let's see. What a weird Thursday. So, I think Little Red Riding Hood is only a couple of pages. I'll go ahead and read Little Red Riding Hood, and then after that, we'll go on our break. Then we'll take 5, so I can use the restroom and top off my water, since you guys are so insistent Me drinking water. Shuddered, I mean, I'm no Trist, but I have a wide variety of sounds that I make, like different voices. Just speaking to you right now, no affection or like no inflection, no crazy sounds. This is what I would call my like normal speaking voice. I live here. This is base. And then, can go all the way up here into this kind of the same inflection, the same tone, but all the way up in my head voice, all the way up here. But I don't talk like this because this would be too bright and too light. It kind of annoys me. And then it's harder to go deeper because I already live kind of in my chest voice. So kind of in between, it's like a warm, rumbly, deeper voice. Not like deep, deep voice, but like I already live, it's more in my chest rather than like my diaphragm. But yeah, like especially if I've been doing like certain audio work and recording lots of stuff. Hey, Gwyn, it's been a minute. I hope you're doing well. Man, those emotes are enormous. I might need to shrink some of those down. Yes, welcome in. I don't know about interesting. I endeavor the Frog Father. Heck yeah. It was nice talking to you earlier, Shuttered. I endeavor, you know how, what is it, Dos Equis, the beer has, the most interesting man in the world. I endeavor to bring that energy. This is why I continue to learn, explore, and try new things. Because if you just walk the same tireless path over and over, you slow down. And then you don't get to enjoy trying new food or enjoy meeting new people or learning things from the youth of today. And yeah, just gotta keep your brain sharp or else you'll get that early on stage dementia. Reading is sexy, learning is sexy, and people that stop doing those things are limiting their cognitive growth. So keep learning, keep trying. Okay, Granny, let's get you back to bed. Oh, cooks, how dare you? My bedtime is not till 10. Yeah, I'm squirreling super hard. You guys you're on one today, so I'm on one. All right. What we're actually here for. Chapter 19. Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time there lived in a village a country girl who was the sweetest little creature that ever was seen. Her mother naturally loved her with excessive fondness, and her grandmother doted on her still more. The good woman had made for her a pretty little red-colored hood, which so much became the little girl that everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, her mother, having made some cheesecakes, said to her, "Go, my child, and see how your grandmother does, for I hear she is ill. Carry her some of these cakes and a little pot of butter." Little Red Riding Hood set out with a basket filled with the cakes and the pot of butter for grandmother's house, which was in a village a little way off the town that her mother lived in. As she was crossing the wood, which lay in her road, she met a large wolf, which had a great mind to eat her up, but dared not, for fear of some woodcutters who were at work near them in the forest. Yet he spoke to her and asked her whither she was going. The little girl, who did not know the danger of talking to a wolf, replied, "Or strangers. Don't talk to strangers. I am going to see my grandmamma and carry these cakes in a pot of butter." "Does she live far off?" said the wolf. "Oh, yes," answered Little Red Riding Hood. "Beyond the mill you see yonder, at the first house in the village." "Well," said the wolf, "I will take this way, and you take that, and see which will be there the soonest." The wolf set out full speed, running as fast as he could, and taking the nearest way, while the little girl took the longest. And as she went along, began to gather nuts, run after butterflies, and make nosegays of such flowers as she found within her reach. The wolf got to the dwelling of the grandmother first, and knocked at the door. "Who is there?" said some voice in the house. "It is your grandchild, Little Red Riding Hood," said the wolf, speaking like the little girl as well as he could. "I have brought you some cheesecakes and a little pot of butter that Mamma has sent you." The good old woman, who was ill in bed, called out, "Pull the bobbin and the latch will go up." The wolf pulled the bobbin, and the door went open. The wolf then jumped upon the poor old grandmother and ate her up in a moment, for it was 3 days since he had tasted any food. The wolf then shut the door and laid himself down in the bed and waited for Little Red Riding Hood, who very soon after reached the house. Tap, tap. "Who is there?" cried he. She was at first a little afraid at hearing the gruff voice of the wolf, but she thought that perhaps her grandmother had got a cold. So she answered, "It is your grandchild, Little Red Riding Hood. Mamma has sent you some cheesecakes and a little pot of butter." The wolf cried out in a softer voice, "Pull the bobbin, and the latch will go up." Little Red Riding Hood pulled the bobbin, and the door went open. When she came into the room, the wolf hid himself under the bedclothes and said to her, trying all he could to speak in a feeble voice, "Put the basket on the stool, my dear, and take off your clothes and come into bed." And this is why this is an 18+ stream. Little Red Riding Hood, who always used to do as she was told, straight undressed herself and stepped into bed. But she thought it strange to see how her grandmother looked in her night clothes, so she said to her, "Dear me, Grandmamma, what great arms you have got! They are so much the better to they are so much better to hug you, my child," replied the wolf. "But, Grandmamma," said the little girl, "what great ears you have got!" "They are so much the better to hear you, my child," replied the wolf. "But then, Grandmamma, what great eyes you have got!" said the little girl. "They are so much the better to see you, my child," replied the wolf. "And, Grandmamma, what great teeth you have got!" said the little girl, who now began to be rather afraid. "They are to eat you up," said the wolf, and saying these words, the wicked creature fell upon Little Red Riding Hood and ate her up in a moment. Yes, we are reading the fucked up older ones, cooks. Yep. Now, Little Red Riding Hood done in other tales, like I do believe the Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm version has a woodcutter that comes into the house and has to cut Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother out of the wolf while he is sleeping, and then collectively the three of them fill his belly with stones and sew it back up again, and that's how that one ends. Yeah. There are also other versions that where the wolf has hidden the grandmother in the closet and attempts to eat Little Red Riding Hood, and the woodcutter is alerted. There are some that like she discovers who it is, and she's able to have the woodcutter kill the wolf and rescue the grandma. Yeah, there are some other altered versions of the story that are either more or less fucked up. But in that one, that was in the translation by Charles Perrault. He just eats them. And the moral of the story is don't talk to strangers. And in the grandma's case, don't let strangers into your house. If you're not feeling well, verify. Verify who it is at the door, and don't just assume it's, you know, somebody pretending to be somebody else. If you're sick, just tell them to come back later. And besides, if it's your grandchild should know how to get into your house. If they've done it, who knows how many dozens of times before. Yes, Horo the Wise. You're not wrong. It's just, I still think the moral there of like, don't talk to strangers, don't let them know your intentions, what you're doing, is valid advice. It's like, if somebody's prying into your business and they have no reason to know it, then why tell them? Why volunteer information that nobody has any right to know but the people in your life that are supposed to? Was drink involved, do you think? I don't know. In this version, I can't tell you. I mean, this was written in 1905. Technically, depending on the time of the day, I guarantee he was writing, with like maybe a watered down wine. Kind of like in Italy, I think the French have like a table wine that is really low ABV. Well, it's more like wine was safer to drink than water. Water was full of bacteria. Water was never boiled. It was never processed. Whereas wine and beer was. And because it was boiled, the key word there is the boiling, it would kill off a lot of the bacteria, if not all of it, making it safer to drink than just good old-fashioned groundwater or well water or river water, especially river water. River water is so bad. Have I ever seen Winston Churchill's daily intake during World War II? I have no idea. Yes, amoeba and bacteria. And bioluminescent algae and other weird things. Anyway, we are going to go ahead and take a quick 3-ish, 5-ish minute break. I'll go use the restroom, top off my water, we'll run an ad, and when I come back, we shall read a couple more stories. So, hang tight, everybody. We'll see you in a few minutes. Alley-oop. One of these days I'll remember to get that set up so the audio will fade out from the music. I keep forgetting I'm supposed to message Fallen Thespian about that, but I keep forgetting. I don't know. ADHD persists. But so do I. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so we are back. We have approximately 2 more stories. One short one, three more stories. One short one, a second even shorter one, and then a medium-ish story. And then we'll have 2 more for next Tuesday. I think I was going to shoot for Tuesday. I might shoot for Wednesday. It kind of depends on how my packing goes, because I will be leaving next Friday night. So I'll have my Wildermyth collab, and then I will be taking my suitcase and heading out of town. So I'll probably be getting food in Anchorage before I leave the city. But anyway, I hope everyone is doing well, and we are back. So, okay. We are on to chapter 20. Let's see. Chapter 20. The Three Bears. Some of the pages is kind of... Let me fix that real quick. Dun 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 dun. Na 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 na. That'll work. There we go. It fixed it, so hopefully. We'll see. Oh, wow. 3 pages. All right, whatever. We got this. Chapter 20. The Three Bears. In a far-off country there was once a little girl who was called Silver Hair, because her curly hair shone brightly. She was a sad romp, and so restless that she could not be kept quiet at home, but must needs run out and away without leave. One day she started off into a wood to gather wild flowers, and into the fields to chase butterflies. She ran here, and she ran there, and went so far at last that she found herself in a lonely place, where she saw a snug little house in which 3 bears lived, but they were not then at home. The door was ajar, and Silverhair pushed it open, and found the place to be quite empty. So she made her mind to go in boldly, and look all about the place, little thinking what sort of people lived there. Now, the 3 bears had gone out to walk a little before this. They were the big bear, and the middle-sized bear, and the little bear. But they had left their porridge on the table to cool. So when Silverhair came into the kitchen, she saw the 3 bowls of porridge. She tasted the largest bowl, which belonged to the big bear, and found it too cold. Then she tasted the middle-sized bowl, which belonged to the middle-sized bear, and found it too hot. Then she tasted the smallest bowl, which belonged to the little bear, and it was just right, and she ate it all. She went into the parlor, and there were 3 chairs. She tried the biggest chair, which belonged to the big bear, and found it too high. Then she tried the middle-sized chair, which belonged to the middle-sized bear, and she found it too broad. Then she tried the little chair, which belonged to the little bear, and found it just right. But she sat in it so hard that she broke it. Now, Silverhair was by this time very tired, and she went upstairs to the chamber, and there she found 3 beds. She tried the largest bed, which belonged to the big bear, and found it too soft. Then she tried the middle-sized bed, which belonged to the middle-sized bear, and she found it too hard. Then she tried the smallest bed, which belonged to the little bear, and found it just right. So she lay down upon it and fell fast asleep. While Silverhair was lying fast asleep, the 3 bears came home from their walk. They came into the kitchen to get their porridge, but when the big bear went to his, he growled, "Someone has been tasting my porridge." And the middle-sized bear looked into his bowl and said, "Somebody has been tasting my porridge." And the little bear piped, "Somebody has been tasting my porridge and eaten it all up." Then they went into the parlor, and the big bear growled, "Someone eaten my spaghetti." Probably not. "Somebody has been sitting in my chair." And the middle-sized bear said, "Somebody has been sitting in my chair." And the little bear piped, "Somebody has been sitting in my chair and has broken it all to pieces." So they went upstairs into the chamber, and the big bear growled, "Somebody has been tumbling my bed." Low-key, me too, someday. And the middle-sized bear said, "Somebody has been tumbling my bed." And the little bear piped, "Somebody has been tumbling in my bed, and here she is." At that, Silverhair woke in a fright and jumped out of the window and ran away as fast as her legs could carry her, and never went near the 3 bears' snug little house again. Fair enough. That one was weird, but we ball. All right. Let's see. Big stretchies. So we're gonna try and get through the ugly duckling. Mid-ass ending, not gonna lie. I mean, she did jump through a window. That was kind of cool. I mean, she didn't get eaten. No repercussions from breaking the chair or sleeping in their beds or eating their porridge. I don't know if she learned any lesson other than being scared of bears. I was hoping it was black bears. Maybe. Let's see. So we're on to chapter 21. Hydrate before you dihydrate. Or we're not. I guess we're not. I will drink some more water, Hawk. You got it. All right, there we go. Is that better? Chapter 21, The Princess on the Pea. There was once a prince who wanted to marry a princess, but she was to be a real princess. So he traveled about all through the world to find a real one, but everywhere there was something in the way. There were princesses enough, but whether they were real princesses, he could not quite make out. There was always something that did not seem quite right. So he came home again and was quite sad, for he wished so much to have a real princess. One evening a terrible storm came on. It lightened and thundered. The rain streamed down. Yeah, just it lightened. Weird. It lightened and thundered. The rain streamed down. It was quite fearful. Then there was a knocking at the town gate, and the old king went out to open it. Really? The king went out to open the... Okay. It was a princess who stood outside the gate. But mercy, how she looked! From the rain and the rough weather, the water ran down from her hair and her clothes, and ran in at the points of her shoes and out of the heels. And yet she declared that she was a real princess. Yes, we will soon find that out, thought the old queen, but she said nothing, only went into the bedchamber, took all the bedding off, and put a pea on the flooring of the bedstead. Then she took 20 mattresses and laid them upon the pea, and then 20 eider-down beds upon the mattresses. On this the princess had to lie all night. In the morning she was asked how she had slept. "Oh, miserably," said the princess. "I scarcely closed my eyes all night long. Goodness knows what was in my bed. I lay upon something quite hard, so that I'm all black and blue all over. It is quite dreadful." Now they saw that she was a real princess, for through the 20 mattresses and the 20 eider-down beds she had felt the pea. No one but a real princess could be so delicate. So the prince took her for his wife, for now he knew that he had a true princess, and the pea was put in the museum, and it is there now, unless somebody has carried it off. Look you, this is a true story. It's kind of weird. Yeah, there was no message. I don't know. I don't know. That was just a weird one, I guess. So this next story, thankfully, whew, this next story will be the last one for today, and thankfully is a bit longer and not hopefully too weird. It's always a gamble with some of these older stories. I never know what I'm going to find. Let's see here. Chapter 22, The Ugly Duckling. It was so glorious out in the country. It was summer. The cornfields were yellow, the oats were green, the hay had been put up in stacks in the green meadows, and the stork went about on his long red legs and chattered Egyptian, for this was the language he had learned from his good mother. All around the fields and meadows were great forests, and in the midst of these forests lay deep lakes. Oh, 1 second. Put a pin in that. Depends on what the question is. Shuttered, there's actually on the server, if you go to the top of the server, there should be a section titled Ask. Like, what's the word I'm looking for here? In the rule announcements and rules, there's a contact us section. If you submit a ticket for whatever the question is, one of the other members should be able to answer it for you. If that's okay. We're here for story time. I'll probably be the one to answer it after the stream is over, since I built them. But if not, somebody else might be able to. No. Oh, no, no bother at all. Yes, it was right glorious out in the country. In the midst of the sunshine there lay an old farm with deep canals about it, and from the wall down to the water grew great burdocks, so high that little children could stand upright under the loftiest of them. It was just as wild there as in the deepest wood, and here sat a duck upon her nest. She had to hatch her ducklings, but she was almost tired out before the little ones came, and then she so seldom had visitors. The other ducks liked better to swim about in the canals than to run up to sit down under a burdock and cackle with her. At last, one eggshell after another burst open. Peep, peep, it cried, and in all the eggs there were little creatures that stuck out their heads. Quack, quack, they said, and they all came quacking out as fast as they could, looking all round them under the green leaves. And the mother let them look as much as they chose, for green is good for the eye. How wide the world is, said all the young ones, for they certainly had much more room now than when they were in the eggs. Do you think this is all the world? Said the mother. That stretches far across the other side of the garden, quite into the parson's field, but I have never been there yet. I hope you are all together. And she stood up. No, I have not all. The largest egg still lies there. How long is that to last? How long is that to last? I am really tired of it. And she sat down again. Well, how goes it? Asked an old duck who had come to pay her a visit. It lasts a long time with that one egg, said the duck who sat there. It will not burst. Now, only look at the others. Are they not the prettiest little ducks one could possibly see? They are all like their father, the rogue. He never comes to see me. Let me see the egg which will not burst, said the old visitor. You may be sure it is a turkey's egg. I was once cheated in that way, and had much anxiety and trouble with the young ones, for they are afraid of the water. Must I say it to you? I could not get them to venture in. I quacked and I clacked, but it was no use. Let me see the egg. Yes, that's a turkey's egg. Let it lie there, and teach the other children to swim. I think I will sit on it a little longer, said the duck. I've sat so long now that I can sit a few days more. Just as you please, said the old duck, and she went away. At last the great egg burst. Peep, peep, said the little one, and crept forth. It was very large and very ugly. The duck looked at it. It's a very large duckling, said she. None of the others look like that. Can it really be a turkey chick? Well, we shall soon find out. It must go into the water, even if I have to thrust it in myself. The next day it was bright, beautiful weather. The sun shone on all the green trees. The mother duck went down to the canal with all her family. Splash! She jumped into the water. Quack, quack, she said, and one duckling after another plunged in. The water closed over their heads, but they came up in an instant and swam capitally. Their legs went of themselves, and they were all in the water. The ugly gray duckling swam with them. No, it's not a turkey, said she. Look how well it can use its legs, and how straight it holds itself. It is my own child. On the whole, it's quite pretty, if one looks at it rightly. Quack, quack, come with me, and I'll lead you out into the great world, and present you in the duck yard. But keep close to me, so that no one may tread on you, and take care of the cats. And so they came into the duck yard. There was a terrible riot going on in there. Don't forget to stretch. You got it.
Big stretch! Time!
Mm-hmm. Stretch and a snack. I need to get more snacks, to be honest. This has been a long week. I had some yesterday, but I do not today. But I will get some after stream. Yes, must keep the librarian healthy. And so they came into the duck yard. There was a terrible riot going on in there, for two families were quarreling about an eel's head, and the cat got it after all. See, that's how it goes in the world, said the mother duck, and she whetted her beak, for she too wanted the eel's head. Only use your legs, she said. See that you can bustle about, and bow your heads before the old duck yonder. She's the grandest of all here. She's of Spanish blood. That's why she's so fat. And do you see? She has a red rag round her leg. That's something particularly fine, and the greatest distinction a duck can enjoy. It signifies that one does not want to lose her, and that she's to be known by the animals and by men too. Shake yourselves. Don't turn in your toes. A well-brought-up duck turns its toes quite out, just like father and mother so. Now, bend your necks and say, quack. And they did so. But the other ducks round about them looked at them and said quite boldly, look there, now we're to have these hanging on as if there were not enough of us already. And, fie, how the duckling yonder looks, we won't stand that. And one duck flew up at it and bit it in the neck. Let it alone, said the mother. It does no harm to anyone. Yes, but it's too large and peculiar, said the duck who had bitten it, and therefore it must be put down. Those are pretty children that the mother has there, said the old duck with the rag round her leg. They're all pretty but that one. That was rather unlucky. I wish she could bear it over again. That cannot be done, my lady, replied the mother duck. It is not pretty, but it has a really good disposition, and swims as well as any other. Yes, I may even say it swims better. I think it will grow up pretty, and become smaller in time. It has lain too long in the egg, and therefore is not properly shaped. And then she pinched it in the neck, and smoothed its feathers. Moreover, it is a drake, she said, and therefore it is not of so much consequence. I think he will be very strong. He makes his way already. The other ducklings are graceful enough, said the old duck. Make yourself at home, and if you find an eel's head, you may bring it to me. I concur, Nutty. And now they were at home. But the poor duckling, which had crept last out of the egg and looked so ugly, was bitten and pushed and jeered as much by the ducks as by the chickens. It is too big, they all said, and the turkey cock, who had been born with spurs and therefore thought himself an emperor, blew himself up like a ship in full sail and bore straight down upon it. Then he gobbled and grew quite red in the face. The poor duckling did not know where it should stand or walk. It was quite melancholy, because it looked ugly, and was the butt of the whole duck yard. So it went on the first day, and afterwards it became worse and worse. The poor duckling was hunted about by everyone. Even its brothers and sisters were quite angry with it and said, if the cat would only catch you, you ugly creature. And the mother said, if you were only far away. And the ducks bit, and the chickens beat it, and the ducks bit it, and the chickens beat it, and the girl who had to feed the poultry kicked at it with her foot. Then it ran and flew over the fence, and the little birds in the bushes flew up in fear. That is because I am so ugly, thought the duckling, and it shut its eyes, but flew on farther. And so it came out into the great moor where the wild ducks lived. Here it lay the whole night long, and it was weary and downcast. Towards morning the wild ducks flew up, and looked at their new companion. "What sort of one are you?" they asked, and the duckling turned in every direction and bowed as well as it could. "You are remarkably ugly," said the wild ducks, "but that is nothing to us, as long as you do not marry into our family." Wow, ducks are rude. Poor thing, it certainly did not think of marrying, only hoped to obtain leave to lie among the reeds and drink some of the swamp water. Thus it lay 2 whole days. Then came thither 2 wild geese, or properly speaking, 2 wild ganders. It was not long since each had crept out of an egg, and that's why they were so saucy. "Listen, comrade," said one of them, "you're so ugly that I like you. Will you go with us and become a bird of passage? Near here is another more. There are a few sweet, lovely wild geese, all unmarried, and all able to say 'rap.' You've a chance of making your fortune, ugly as you are." Piff paff resounded through the air, and the 2 ganders fell down dead in the swamp, and the water became blood red. Piff paff it sounded again, and the whole flock of wild geese rose up from the reeds, and then there was another report. A great hunt was going on. The sportsmen were lying in wait all round the moor, and some were even sitting up in the branches of the trees, which spread far over the reeds. The blue smoke rose up like clouds among the trees and was wafted far away across the water, and the hunting dogs came, splish splash, into the swamp, and the rushes and the reeds bent down on every side. That was a fright for the poor duckling. It turned its head and put it under its wing, but at that moment a frightful great dog stood close by the duckling. His tongue hung far out of his mouth, and his eyes gleamed horrible and ugly. He thrust out his nose close against the duckling, showed his sharp teeth, and splash, splash, on he went without seizing it. "Oh, heaven be thanked," sighed the duckling. "I am so ugly that even the dog does not like to bite me." And so it lay quite quiet while the shots rattled through the reeds and gun after gun was fired. At last, late in the day, all was still, but the poor duckling did not dare to rise up. It waited several hours before it looked round, and then hastened away out of the moor as fast as it could. It ran on over field and meadow. There was such a storm raging that it was difficult to get from one place to another. Towards evening, the duck came to a little miserable peasant's hut. This hut was so dilapidated that it did not itself know on which side it should fall, and that's why it remained standing. The storm whistled round the duckling in such a way that the poor creature was obliged to sit down, to stand against it, and the wind blew worse and worse. Then the duckling noticed that one of the hinges of the door had given way, and the door hung so slanting that the duckling could slip through the crack into the room, and that is what it did. Here lived a woman with her cat and her hen, and the cat, whom she called Sunny, could arch his back and purr. He could even give out sparks, but to make him do it, one had to stroke his fur the wrong way. The hen had quite little short legs, and therefore she was called Chickabiddy Shortshanks. Chickabiddy Shortshanks. That is a phenomenal name. She laid good eggs, and the woman loved her like her own child. In the morning, the strange duckling was at once noticed, and the cat began to purr, and the hen to cluck. "What's this?" said the woman, and looked all round, but she could not see well, and therefore she thought the duckling was a fat duck that had strayed. "This is a rare prize," she said. "Now I shall have duck's eggs. I hope it is not a drake. We must try that." And so the duckling was admitted on trial for 3 weeks, but no eggs came. And the cat was master of the house, and the hen was the lady, and always said, "We and the world," for she thought they were half the world and by far the better half. The duckling thought one might have a different opinion, but the hen would not allow it. "Can you lay eggs?" she asked. "No." "Then will you hold your tongue?" And the cat said, "Can you curve your back and purr and give out sparks?" "No." "Then you will please have no opinion of your own when sensible folks are speaking." And the duckling sat in a corner and was melancholy. Then the fresh air and the sunshine streamed in, and it was seized with such a strange longing to swim on the water that it could not help telling the hen of it. "What are you thinking of?" cried the hen. "You have nothing to do. That's why you have these fancies. Lay eggs or purr, and they will pass over." "But it is so charming to swim on the water," said the duckling, "so refreshing to let it close above one's head and to dive down to the bottom. Yes, you must be a mighty pleasure." "Yes, that must be a mighty pleasure, truly," quoth the hen. "I fancy you must have gone crazy. Ask the cat about it. He's the cleverest animal I know. Ask him if he likes to swim on the water or to dive down." "I won't speak about myself. Ask our mistress, the old woman. No one in the world is cleverer than she. Do you think she has any desire to swim and to let the water close above her head?" "You don't understand me," said the duckling. "We don't understand you? Then pray who is to understand you? You surely don't pretend to be cleverer than the cat and the woman. I won't say anything of myself. Don't be conceited, child, and thank your Maker for all the kindness you have received. Did you not get into a warm room, and have you not fallen into company from which you may learn something? But you are a chatterer. Chatterer. There we go. You are a chatterer, and it is not pleasant to associate with you. You may believe me, I speak for your good. I tell you disagreeable things, and by that one may always know one's true friends. Only take care that you learn to lay eggs or to purr and give out sparks. "I think I will go out into the wide world," said the duckling. "Yes, do go," replied the hen, and so the duckling went away. It swam on the water and dived, but it was slighted by every creature because of its ugliness. Now came the autumn. The leaves in the forest turned yellow and brown. The wind caught them so that they danced about. And up in the air it was very cold. The clouds hung low, heavy with hail and snowflakes, and on the fence stood the raven, crying, "Croak, croak," from mere cold. Yes, it was enough to make one feel cold to think of this. The poor little duckling certainly had not a good time. One evening, the sun was just setting in his beauty. There came a whole flock of great handsome birds out of the bushes. They were dazzling white, with long, flexible necks. They were swans. They uttered a very they uttered a very peculiar cry, spread forth their glorious great wings, and flew away from that cold region to warmer lands, to fair open lakes. They mounted so high, and the ugly duckling felt quite strangely as it watched them. It turned round and round in the water like a wheel, stretched out its neck towards them, and uttered such a strange, loud cry as frightened itself. Oh! It could not forget those beautiful, happy birds, and so soon as it could see them no longer, it dived down to the very bottom, and when it came up again, it was quite beside itself. It knew not the name of those birds, and knew not whither they were flying. but it loved them more than it had ever loved anyone. It was not at all envious of them. How could it think of wishing to possess such loveliness as they had? It would have been glad if only the ducks would have endured its company, the poor, ugly creature. And the winter grew cold, very cold. The duckling was forced to swim about in the water to prevent the surface from freezing entirely, but every night the hole in which it swam became smaller and smaller. It froze so hard that the icy covering crackled again, and the duckling was obliged to use its legs continually to prevent the hole from freezing up, as at last it became exhausted and lay quite still, and thus froze fast into the ice. Early in the morning a peasant came by, and when he saw what had happened, he took his wooden shoe, broke the ice crust to pieces, and carried the duckling home to his wife. Then it came to itself again. The children wanted to play with it, but the duckling thought they wanted to hurt it, and in its terror fluttered up into the milk pan, so that the milk spurted down into the room. The woman clasped her hands, at which the duckling flew down into the butter tub, and then into the meal barrel and out again. How it looked then! The woman screamed and struck at it with the fire tongs. The children tumbled over one another in their efforts to catch the duckling. And they laughed and they screamed. Well, it was that the door opened, and the poor creature was able to slip out between the shrubs into the newly fallen snow. There it lay, quite exhausted. Me too, buddy. But it would be too melancholy if I were to tell all the misery and care which the duckling had to endure in the hard winter. It lay out on the moor, among the reeds, when the sun began to shine again and the larks to sing. It was a beautiful spring. Then all at once the duckling could flap its wings. They beat the air more strongly than before, and bore it strongly away. And before it well knew how all this happened, it found itself in a great garden, where the elder trees smelt sweet, and bent their long green branches down to the canal that wound through the region. Oh, here it was so beautiful, such a gladness of spring, and from the thicket came 3 glorious white swans. They rustled their wings and swam lightly on the water. The duckling knew the splendid creatures and felt oppressed by a peculiar sadness. I will fly away to them, to the royal birds, and they will beat me because I, that am so ugly, dare to come near them. But it is all the same. Better to be killed by them than to be pursued by ducks, and beaten by fowls, and pushed about by the girl who takes care of the poultry yard, and to suffer hunger in winter. And it flew out into the water, and swam towards the beautiful swans. These looked at it, and came sailing down upon it with outspread wings. "Kill me," said the poor creature, and bent its head down upon the water, expecting nothing but death. But what was this that it saw in the clear water? It beheld its own image, and lo, it was no longer a clumsy, dark gray bird, ugly and hateful to look at, but a swan. It matters nothing if one is born in a duck yard, if one has only lain in a swan's egg. It felt quite glad at all the need and misfortune it had suffered. Now it realized its happiness and all the splendor that surrounded it, and the great swans swam round it and stroked it with their beaks. In the garden came little children, who threw bread and corn into the water, and the youngest cried, "There is a new one!" and the other children shouted joyously, "Yes, a new one has arrived!" And they clapped their hands and danced about and ran to their father and mother, and bread and cake were thrown into the water, and they all said, The new one is the most beautiful of all, so young and handsome. And the old swans bowed their heads before him. Then he felt quite ashamed and hid his head under his wing, for he did not know what to do. He was so happy and yet not at all proud. He thought how he had been persecuted and despised, and now he heard them saying that he was the most beautiful of all birds. Even the elder tree bent its branches straight down into the water before him, and the sun shone warm and mild. Then his wings rustled. He lifted his slender neck and cried rejoicingly from the depths of his heart, I never dreamed of so much happiness when I was the ugly duckling. Well, I'm not sure what what the moral was supposed to be there, but that was a good story. That one was probably one of the better ones. I like the Jack the Giant Killer from today as well. Oh, big stretch. Well, that puts us at what, 2.5 hours? I think we'll stop there because this next story is about 20 pages long, and I don't know that I have Mary Sue's one. I don't know if I quite have enough energy to do this, and it's very oddly broken into sections for this part here. So what we shall do, I'm gonna check to see. I think Sino was supposed to be doing a special event about making him laugh today. He made mention of it. Mostly harmless. Neff started about 30 minutes ago. Following. Ba 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 da ba. Boo. Let's see. Yeah, I laugh, I lose. Punishment wield. Sino is doing a special event today, and I wanted to participate and have all of you guys check out Sino the Crocodile. So, double checking any Underrealmers. No, nobody else from the team. So I'm going to take all of you lovely people over to Sino for his special event, and we'll see if we can, see how well he'll be punished. So let's do a real quick. Yes, we're gonna raid into Sino. Why are you being unnecessarily silly? Here we go. Start that. And then what we do is a quick raid. There's a quick, easy raid message. Read and raid. Be sure to grab that. And we're gonna head over to Sino the Crocodile, who is a little guy. He's just a little guy, and right now he's watching videos, and if he laughs, he has to use the punishment wheel. One of the punishments that I'm quite amused by is actually he has to eat what's the word I'm looking for? He has to eat potato salad because he's apparently never tried it, and I don't know why. I just find this very amusing. You can blame Schwarzgeist for that little addition. Good timing, Nikto. And we're going right over to Sino, so we'll all go together. So, all right, grab your hats, grab your coats, grab your read and raid message, and let's go say hello to Sino the Crocodile. I hope you all have a wonderful time and a good weekend, and I will be back next week.